we could be entering into a golden age of property investing. You've got to be in it to win it. And it's gone on to triple in value since the day we bought it. Wow, that's amazing. We'll have a free house. None of my properties are perfect, but all of them bring me cash flow. Managed to connect the lecky to next door. It was a cannabis factory. Hi, I'm Anne Houlton. I'm one of the lead trainers at Progressive Property. I've been working with Progressive Property for around 5 years now, and I've trained thousands of property investors how to get started in property, how to scale their existing property businesses. I've been investing in property since 2001, and I've made a lot of mistakes, but I've had an awful lot of success too. I'm going to share with you in this video how you can be successful in property too. But before we get started in this video, make sure you like and subscribe. Right, shall we hop in the Tesla and I'll show you around some of my properties. So when I first started investing in property way back in 2001, I wasn't living in Heanor, I was living somewhere else. Heanor town itself is an ex-mining town, and the housing stock is nothing like the type of housing stock that I imagined would be suitable for investment, because I didn't really know anything about investment at all. When I first started investing in property, I was a dentist married to a doctor. You know, my dream was to own my own home outright mortgage free. So what we did was basically I persuaded him that every penny of surplus income that we had over and above what we were earning, took every last penny that we had and we used it to pay down our mortgage. And then my friends Miles and Joe came for Sunday lunch. They'd just bought a little house near the station in Derby. But they explained what they were going to do. They said, well, we're going to rent it out. The rent that the tenant's going to pay is actually more than the mortgage. We'll have a free house. Wow. And I said, that's amazing. And they said, yes, it is. You should do it. So I did. I called my independent financial advisor and I said, I want to mortgage this house, because we had this fairly modest but nice-ish house. We're going to mortgage that house and I'm going to take that money and start investing in property. So that's exactly what we did. So I've just got out of the car and of course with typical British weather it started to rain. So these properties, and I own both of them, were the type of properties that I started buying when I first started investing in property. They were entirely the wrong type of property to buy really, because what I was doing is what many people do when they get started in property. I was buying with my heart, not with my head. So I was looking for the type of property that I could see myself in. Now the challenge with these type of properties are you cannot add any value to them, or hardly any value to them. When I bought them, they were virtually new. Didn't need a new kitchen, didn't need a new bathroom. So there was no way to force the appreciation as there is with the kind of older terraced houses. You can't change the rooms around. The rooms inside are too small. You can't add another bedroom. You can't do anything to it to make it worth more. And the person that lives there is also very different. So the person that lives in these type of properties tends to be more aspirational. So they are renting in that house so that they can save a deposit to buy their own house. They tend to be moving on. So the type of properties I buy now are for people who want to make them their almost forever home. They're the type of properties that people who have a history of renting want to rent. So now I'm going to take you and show you the type of properties I buy right now and the type of properties that you should be buying to build your property portfolio. You can see that this is Heanor. It's, not exactly gorgeous. Now we're filming this at 10:30 in the morning. If you attend this street at 6 o'clock at night or 5 o'clock at night, there will be literally nowhere to park because people have come in from work, it's hard to park. So when you're researching areas, it's important to visit your area at different times of day and night and different days of the week to get a feel for the area. That's one of my houses, that one there. So that is 13 John Street in Heanor. And that's a very solid mid-Victorian terraced house, which is a family home. Okay, so we get out and look at it. If we look at the house from this angle, what I really liked about it is you can see that the roof is pretty good. The important thing to know about a roof is it doesn't actually add anything to what we call the perceived value of a property. So when we're doing our refurbs on the buy, refurbish, rent, refinance strategy, or the BRRR strategy as we call it at Progressive, you want to be adding value to a property in a way that doesn't cost a huge amount of money but does add £1 worth of spend to increase the value by £3. So 98% of properties in the UK have got a roof on them. So replacing the roof doesn't tend to add anything to the value of the property in terms of its uplift. Inside the house, it had what we call a back boiler. So this is a boiler that is behind the fireplace. So I replaced that with a condensing combi boiler, and it had although it doesn't look like it, you can see it's a bit like a TARDIS house. It's actually really spacious inside. So it's got 3 good sized, technically double bedrooms. So for the properties I'm renting out, and this rents out for, I believe, $585 per calendar month, so a decent yield to a family. The family have been in here over 5 years now, so although I'm increasing the rent every year in line with inflation, if and when those family does move out, I will be able to uplift the rent even more than that. So things really changed for me when I stopped buying properties with my heart and started buying them with my head. When I got properly trained and properly educated, and I learnt what properties were going to be the most profitable. As my old mum used to say, handsome is as handsome does. The house behind me is not the most attractive house in my portfolio, but it's one of the better yielding ones. It's a great cash machine. So this street in Hena will be perfect for direct to vendor marketing. What do I mean by direct to vendor? What I mean is you're bypassing the estate agent. You're going directly to the person who needs to sell their house. Now, direct to vendor marketing only works if somebody needs to sell and needs to sell quickly. It doesn't work for people who've got plenty of time to sell their house for the estate agent. If they're going through divorce, if they've got bad debts, if they need to relocate urgently. So a direct to vendor campaign will be something like leaflets. We have some beautiful brightly coloured leaflets designed, and you put them through the door explaining that you can buy their house and buy it very quickly. What you wanted to be doing is putting the leaflets through the door after people are home from work. But if your leaflet goes to the door, say between 7 and 9 p.m, and they're getting up from watching the telly to go to bed and they see something on the mat, a brightly coloured leaflet, potentially screwed up, which screwing a leaflet up actually increases the open rate for it. So if they pick up a screwed up leaflet and see it, your message will be there and they'll be inclined to ring you. On average, it takes somebody 7 times from seeing a message to respond to it. So it's a campaign where you have to keep doing it. So in a house like this where there's probably 50 properties, there are deals. Maybe not on this street, but in the next street or the street after. There are deals everywhere. We never know when. You just have to keep out there and keep going and keep marketing. There we are, 144 Station Road. We're going to park here. And you can hear we're on a really busy road. Key thing about this property, it has literally no parking. It's on a double yellow line. That means that I was able to secure this property at significant discounts. This property was bought for £50,000, but it did need a load of work doing to it. So you can see I've had to put a new roof on it. And as I said previously, a new roof doesn't actually add much to the value of the property, but it really needed it because rain was coming in. So I changed it from a 2-bedroom house to a 3-bedroom house. Although it doesn't look it, it's quite huge inside. So it's now got a single bedroom where the bathroom was and 2 still good sized double bedrooms. The property rents out for £525 per calendar month. Properties like this, they yield really good, and tenants tends to stay really long term. My average length of tenancy in properties like this is over 5 years. So the income's pretty passive. Tenants tend to pay and stay. So I promised you some mistakes, and this is 33 Elmsfield Avenue where I made a big mistake. I engaged a letting agent to manage this house, and the first thing I heard that was a problem with it was I was getting, property inspection reports from the letting agent saying, it's all great. The actual letter came to our house saying, we are very happy with the tenants in occupation and the condition of the property. And then the next property inspection report 6 months later said exactly the same thing, but the rent was coming in and I was leveraging and outsourcing. I got a letting agent manage it, so I thought everything was great. I was finally alerted to a problem when we got a letter about the gas safety certificate of the property. The letter said, we have been unable to carry out the gas safety check on the property because there is no gas at the house. And I was like, what? What do you mean there's no gas at the house? There's a combi boiler on the wall in the kitchen. Anyway, to cut a very long story short, there was no gas at this house. The tenants had nicked the boiler. They had disconnected the gas, they'd taken all the radiators away. They had somehow, by some shizzle manizzle, managed to connect the leck heater next door, hermetically seal the house. It was a cannabis factory. So when the tenant was evicted, because that's an illegal activity, what we then had to do was carry out a refurb on the house. And this is before I knew anything about selecting the correct refurb team or how to manage them. And the refurb on this very ordinary house turned out to be around £30,000 way back in the day. So that was a big lesson learned for me. But what I didn't do was I didn't sell it. And it's gone on to triple in value since the day we bought it. So I'm glad we kept it. It rents out nicely now to a nice young family. A key lesson here is you need the right members of your power team. A great letting agent. Choose a great tenant that's going to pay and stay.
What's it like living with a Tesla?
Well, it's an interesting car. It's really fast. It's a bit big. It's really tax efficient actually, with the zero emissions. So for any of you who are wanting to put your car through the business, Tesla is great for tax at the moment. Realistically, my property business can be run from anywhere in the world. We were in New Zealand fairly recently for 7 weeks, and we ran our entire property businesses from our phone and a small MacBook. So you can run a property business from anywhere in the world, very few hours a week, because most of it's systemised, most of it's leveraged out. So when I first was buying houses, I wasn't forcing any appreciation. I was just buying them, putting tenants in, and as long as the property kind of what we call wash its face. So as long as there was enough money coming in to pay the mortgage on the properties, I wasn't concerning myself with were they going to give me any cash flow, because I was very much of the mindset that these were going to be a pension for me and perhaps, or definitely a legacy for my children and my children's children to pass down. So we kind of almost supplemented it. So for years, I don't think Steve and I made any profits from our properties. What we did was we just bought houses that we could see ourselves living in. We rented them out to tenants, and we waited for capital growth to allow us to move forward. That wasn't a strategy that was going to get us out of our day jobs anytime soon. It was very much going to happen in the future. And the truth is, even in the East Midlands, Derby, Heanor, Ilkeston, Langley Mill, places like this, even in the East Midlands, where people don't traditionally think of as a lot of capital growth happening, we've made more money through capital growth across the portfolio than we ever have through rental income. So even those properties that I bought that didn't really allow us to have extra income to allow us to quit our jobs sooner have still made us a lot of money. What I now know, and what I encourage everybody to do, is you should always buy initially and with in mind that they must cash flow. Your properties must cash flow from day one. One of the big mistakes that people make is, I believe, is they spend so long kind of sort of thinking about doing it. I don't want you to buy the wrong properties in the wrong area and pay the wrong amount for them and not do a refurb. No, I don't want you to do all that stuff which can get you into trouble, but I want you to buy some houses, because once you've got the houses, you're going to potentially benefit from the capital growth and you're going to get the income. Too many people get stuck in analysis paralysis waiting for the perfect property or the perfect deal. I haven't got a perfect property to show you in this tour. None of my properties are perfect, but all of them bring me cash flow and all of them have had capital growth. I want to talk a little bit about COVID and what it means for the property world. I don't think we're out of the woods yet with COVID. So what I believe is going to happen is there's going to be potentially a coming recession or even a depression happening in the UK. And that's going to mean a lot of people are going to be in a situation where they need to sell their houses, and they need potentially to sell their houses quickly. So for property investors, we could be entering into a golden age of property investing. It's number 9, and it's right next door to a house that's got stone cladding on it. So stone cladding is never the most popular, thing to live next door to or even to live in. But you can see there's my property, Milton Street. Again, that's one that I've changed from a 2-bed to a 3-bed house. Small forecourt at the front. There's my tenant Cherie inside, way to Cherie. This one, which is number 14. Now that is still a 2-bed. Because somebody had already kind of moved the bathroom upstairs and there just wasn't enough space to reconfigure it inside. You can't always change a 2-bed to a 3-bed. And if we go around the corner up to Ash Street, and these are the backs, these 2 houses there, see those 2 semis? Yeah, one with creeper. Those are the 2 that I bought early on, and I was very seduced by these because they are sort of nice houses. This one with 37 above, you see he had it all beautifully done. But can you see the gate's rotten now? So that was his gate. I'm probably going to have to replace that gate, that one. So that's very typical of, you know, the type, you're getting a feel for the type of properties that we like to buy. That's a nice 2-bedroom house that had a new kitchen, a new bathroom, just a standard refurb. New kitchen, new bathroom, redecorated throughout, new floor coverings. And that's a kind of base standard refurb that allows you to spend £1 to add a whole £3 worth of value. So we own this house, number 18, Peveril. That rents out really well. It's got off-street parking. Once you find an area that works, where it rents really well, where tenants stay long term, you just want to keep replicating the process. So there's this one up here, which is 66, which is the one behind that. See, we've got a quite ill-kempt hedge, and my tenants have actually got their hedge quite nicely. It's number 66. So that's another property. So we've done the full circle round, Boswell Road becoming Peveril Crescent. So the really cool thing about property is that it lends itself really well to working with other people and to using other people's money to grow your property portfolio. Particularly at the moment where we have people in the UK, if they've got some savings, they're earning effectively the square root of nothing on their savings. So I think in my current account, I'm earning 0.05% per annum interest. The reason I've got money in my current account at the moment is because I'm always waiting. I always want to have some liquid cash waiting for the next deal to come along. The time is absolutely ripe now to start working with other people. In the UK, the Englishman's home is his castle. We've got phrases like safe as houses. Investors understand that property is a very safe vehicle for them to be investing in. So you can take somebody else's money, invest it in property, give them a first charge on the property, so effectively their money is secure. Anything goes wrong with your joint venture, they will have the ability to effectively repossess the property from you and sell it to recoup their initial investment. So it's a very, very safe vehicle, and people understand it. So I own this house on Blake Street, number 8, which is this one here. It's a 3-storey, 3-bedroom house there, number 8 Blake Street. And I also own this house we're coming to round the corner on Mill Street as well. When I first bought Blake Street and Milton Street, because the station's only been open in the last year or so, the station was redundant. So it used to be a railway station back in the day, years ago. And then what happened was the station closed. So I'd researched the local area, I'd researched what the local plan, so you should Google something called the local plan in your area. And as a result of researching that local plan, I knew that the station was about to be reopened. So buying houses in this area has made huge sense, because we've benefited from the capital growth, because it's much more desirable for people to live close to an active railway station. So always research your Goldwyn area, effectively the local plan for the area. Google words like regeneration. So this is a property that we own. It's 103 Mill Street, and Mill Street's a property that I use to illustrate whether we should or whether we shouldn't accept tenants with pets. So many people that I speak to would really rather do anything other than let out a property to a tenant who has pets, because they're worried about damage to the property, dog wee everywhere, or cat scratching or whatever. I'm a bit of an animal lover myself, so it's always been my policy to accept tenants with pets, and I do it now for sound economic reasons. I have found through years of experience that tenants with pets tend to stay, so you can hear one of the dogs there, tend to stay longer. So that's actually on cue, one of my tenants' dogs barking. So this particular property, 103 Mill Street, has a tenant in it called Sam. And Sam is in receipt of benefits. When she moved into my property around 7 years ago, she had 2 dogs. Now that's 2 strikes against poor Sam, because some landlords have a prejudice against people in receipt of benefits. Some landlords have a prejudice against pets, and combine the two and it's difficult. So when she applied for our property, she had been looking for months to find somewhere that would accept her on benefits with 2 dogs. We have a policy of accepting people with pets as long as we can visit their house where they're living at the moment. So my letting agency, we go out from the letting agency to visit where the tenant currently lives, to meet them, to meet their pets. And it was very apparent that, you know, Sam's house was perfectly nice, sort of house where you wanted to take off your shoes on the way in, didn't smell of dog, it was nice, clean, well kept. So we were happy to accept her. Now Sam's been there a long while. When she lived in the house for a couple of years, one of the dogs got pregnant. So Sam being Sam, the dogs were really important to her. She decided she would keep a couple of the puppies. So now Sam lives in this little ordinary 2 up, 2 down, sort of end terrace Victorian property with 4 dogs. And effectively she's trapped there because very few other landlords are going to take her in receipt of benefits with 4 dogs. So I don't actually care what condition my carpets are in after 7 years. I'm going to replace them if and when Sam leaves, or when, you know, they've actually worn out and she needs new carpets in them. So for me, taking tenants with pets is sound economic principles because they tend to stay significantly longer. And also we have checked the house that they're living in at the moment to check that the dogs aren't causing any trouble. Also, Sam had lived in her previous property for around 3 years. So if somebody's had a history of renting with pets for a long period of time, it's very unlikely that the pets are going to be causing trouble, because 3 years is long enough for a landlord to get fed up with the tenant, with the pets, or for neighbours to be complaining and the landlord feel they have to ask the tenant to leave because of issues with dogs barking or whatever. So that was a very safe bet for us. It's been really good for us. She's very happy there. We're very happy for her to live there. Tenants with pets for me is a winner, but it's very much your call. So I've shared my story with you and I've shown you some of my properties. You may have been sort of thinking about getting into property for ages and ages. We're potentially entering into unprecedented times in the property world. Now is the time to get educated. Now is the time for you to take action and start to build your property business. And the first thing you can do to get started is to subscribe to this YouTube channel. We've got lots of videos on all aspects of property investing. I've been Anne Houlton. Thanks very much for watching.